Welcome, Sister Series. And we like to record our messages. And once we open the floor for you to speak, we stop the recording. So, because these messages do get sent out to a ton of women that just can't be here and they do watch. So we do honor the fact that if you are led to speak during this time in this place amongst this group, that's where it stays. It does not get sent out. Okay, so we just want to make that clear. But we are so excited to have you to get started. So that's Woman Crush Wednesday in a nutshell. We are now on our series of relationships. Listen, we've been waiting to get here, huh? Listen, how many of y'all have had perfect relationships? I mean, friendships, romance, family, church. How many of y'all have never had an issue with someone? Never had a chat? I just want to see your hand so that I can fly to your place tonight. Somebody said, I would love to know. Anybody have an issue this week? Just somebody said something and you're like, you know what? It's just so that even just today, going to pick my daughter up from daycare. And when I saw her, she had on a different jacket. And listen, look, y'all, let me tell y'all know I'm transparent, right? And I'm gonna be very open and honest. I'm a African-American woman and maybe not a lot like me around. And I'm not saying that changes, but that's on our mind when we start to communicate with others. And I saw my daughter with this construction jacket on and I was like, ooh. I had to breathe. I know I shouldn't even be saying this in front of my mother right now. She's going to call me right after this. Where's her jacket? And I literally spoke to my husband. I said, we are literally talking about relationships. We're talking about people. Even if you're not close with them, for those of y'all that be at work or just on the phone or you're in a small group, it's just people. It's so hard sometimes to stay in the Christian lane. You know what I mean? And then if you're advocating for someone like a young, and that's what I told my husband. I said, look, I know how to kind of pull back if it's me, if it's somebody makes a mistake, I'm just like, oh, it's okay. But now I realize something different is I've got to deal with as a mother. I wanted to be like, everyone stop what you're doing and find my daughter's jacket before I lose this hair on my head. But the Lord was talking to me and said, breathe, it's just a jacket. She's safe, she's happy. And I'm sitting here talking to my daughter. I don't even know if she knows what I'm saying. I said, mommy is trying to stay calm. And she said, So, but all that to say is we are constantly faced with challenges with the people in our lives and not in our lives. You ever just be having a good day and just a stranger, it could be, forget road rage, driving or just somebody just says something. You're just like, Lord, help me. As women, we are constantly working on our emotions. And if some women are like, look, I just got here. Some women are like, you got the right person on the right day, and you're just living that grace. So we have so much to unpack when it comes to relationships. We're going to talk about the platonic, the coworkers, the church hurt. We're going to talk about it all, and the romance. We're going to talk about these men, honey. You know why? Because they ain't here. All right. This is our time. We're going to talk about the boyfriends, the dating, marriage, divorce, so much. And we're going to bring another woman because I need to sit back and I need to learn a lot. And we're going to have others come and speak on certain things that, and when I say other women, I'm talking about y'all. For those that are led to share, we want to hear your experience. How'd you get through that? How did you resolve that in your heart? And then you've got, we've got trauma from the past. We've got people that have hurt us, abused us. And then it comes to that, like, how do we move forward? And it goes right back to that theme of being beautifully broken. How do we resolve some of that trauma? How do we get real with God to say, I can't carry this no more? I have to be able to, and it doesn't mean that you got to sit at the table with everyone. Some people ain't never going to sit at your table again. Period. And that's okay. All right. Let's be clear. We're not saying, okay, we're going to forgive everybody and become best friends. No. But what we are saying is we're going to be free. We're going to work on being free. We're going to work on being able to sit at the table with our sister, especially our sister, because we know the men. We know they're going to do something. But the friendships that we are lacking, especially within our Christian community amongst other women, because the guard's up, the hurt is there, the experience, we have to be able to break down the walls, but slowly. And I mean very slowly, because it's a lot. And I'm excited to dive into this. I'm excited to hear about where you ladies are coming from and where we are. And it's going to be good. But in order for us to live in that place of being beautifully broken and God puts us back together and then something else happens. And that's the whole thing. Like, no matter where you are on the whole healed, broken scale of things happening, he is constantly there and constantly using you, no matter what. That's that theme of being, beautifully broken. And he's able to work even better when you hit rock bottom, when you feel like I just can't go on. That's when he pours out. And that's what we were talking about. And even under the biggest theme of CCC, renewal, a lot of us are looking for a refreshing gear. I don't know about y'all, but we're not trying to go back. It's been a rough couple of years and a lot was surfaced. COVID, the pandemic, grief, loss, surprises, tragedy at your front door, work change, career changes, maybe by your choice or not by choice, but a lot was surfaced, and there's some trauma that we experienced just in the last few years. Forget digging in the past, right? And so when we talk, some of us are at a place which we need to be, where we're ready for something new, a new mindset. I love speaking to someone. I was speaking to a young lady, and for so long, she was so frustrated at work. She was just, I just knew. I said, oh, she's going to probably go into 2023 with a new job. And I wound up running into her, and she said, you know what I had to do? She said, I had to change my perspective. Because I said, you look so free, and you still there? You look different. I could see the weight lifted off of her. And see, as ladies, that's that whole beautifully broken thing. We don't realize when we're constantly carrying that, you can see it. At least another woman can. A lot of women can see past the mask that we are able to put on, or that we just have to. Sometimes we don't want to put it on, but we got to keep going. Whether you're a teacher or you're at work or you're a mom or whatever the case is, you got to keep going. You can't just imagine if we could just walk around as women, letting everybody, like a kid, pretty much. A child will let you know exactly what they feel at any time. It doesn't matter what's going on. I could be speaking to the President of the United States. This could be my biggest opportunity, and pressure will bust through that doors and say, Mom, I just went to the bathroom. Whatever. They don't care. And what God is saying to us is, as we grow and mature, we can't just allow ourselves to just show that. However, there is a way where we can go to God at any time and let him know. There's never an inappropriate time to tell God how you're feeling and how you're dealing. And he allows you to work through that and allow those masks to be more authentic, okay? So we are working on building strong relationships. We are working on building ourselves up to be free. We are working on learning to sit down at the table again with people. I love it. I saw a couple of people say, I ain't sitting at that table. Listen, yeah, I get it. I've gotten up from so many tables, sometimes too soon, sometimes way too late. So we said some tables we've been sitting at with people we should have got up a long time ago. We having breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you should have got up during the middle snack, So we're going to learn. I'm so into this book. So what we do is we pretty much speak from a book and we just talk amongst ourselves. The book is called Come Sit With Me, and it's edited by Becky Keefe. It will be in the recap email. If you're joining us for the first time, make sure you are registered to the Women's Ministry email, because that's how you'll get the recaps, the reminders, and all that information is in the email, the book, the link. You can also, or just the name of the book, so you can Google it just in case you want to find it somewhere else. It's in different places. It's not really an author. It's actually a book of a bunch of different stories from women in different relationships and different issues and challenges that they face, all on all different scales. Like I said, from platonic to romantic, and it's just amazing. So, our theme with the Beautifully Broken was to be, was to be was to be able to boast in our weaknesses. I'm sorry, I'm always in this, and then I got to go over to the church chat, because y'all be in there having a ball, and I'm like laughing at the things I see. So boasting in our weaknesses. I think somebody said, yeah, I had to flip that table that I was sitting at, and I flipped the table. Get up and flip the table. You need some done. They flipping that. Look, Jesus flipped tables, so I'm just saying. I'm not mad at it. I flip some tables too. I still flip some tables in marriage. See, in marriage, you get up from the table and then the table's still there. I'm like, wait a minute. God's like, you better sit back down. You know what I'm saying? Some marriages, look, I get it. All right. So 2 Corinthians 12:9 talks about boasting in those weaknesses. Many of us can say, especially as you go through life and you experience more, to be honest, especially as women and the way that we're set up, we start looking at people like, what is your intention? I know that's my issue. You start being like, now why? And that it's not a good place to be. It's a great place to be aware and to be cognizant of the discernment that God gives you. But sometimes it's our guardedness that also blocks out the Holy Spirit. It's our own past experiences that stops us from hearing God say, you need to sit at this table. You may not sit there long. Some relationships are seasonal. Some relationships are for that moment that you met in the supermarket. Some relationships are a lifetime. But Pastor has taught us that principle. Ultimately, relationships are the network for life. And if we don't break that cycle of isolation, and I'm just going to do this on my own because I can't get hurt like that again, we're going to miss out on the network of life. God literally created us to literally love each other. And I don't want to say what's worse, I'll say what's harder, is to love one another as yourselves, more than yourself. I had to reread it. You always heard it. I had to reread it and just ask God. I'm like, are you sure? Just get back to me. No, you don't have to get back to me tonight. You can get back to me in a week. Let's circle back in 7 days. He's like, yeah, I'm sure. I want you to get in there. I want you to really love people, because that is where you'll find me. And as you love people and as you find yourself in the most challenging places, you will find yourselves growing beyond measure, transforming, and doors opening that you've been waiting on for years. And that's that part right there, because and Pastor always says that when there's a new level, a lot of times it's a person, it's a relationship. You may not like, you don't got to like everyone. You don't have to be besties, but ladies, we have to do better about connecting to people. We have to do better about actually being the salt of the earth. We cannot season anything if it's not there. That's like me taking out my baking pan, taking the salt, not putting no chicken on it, and just sprinkling it on nothing because I decided to disconnect from the people. How useful is the seasoning if the stuff ain't there? How can we be a light if we are constantly placing ourselves in a closet? And the women, you are powerful and you have to stop hiding your light. And what happens as a woman, your light is so big and so bright and many times has been abused, taken advantage of. So we take it back. We say, you ain't gonna bring that darkness over here to my candle. Get up, and we hide. We decide to protect ourselves instead of placing ourselves back in the hands of God. Because sometimes when we get hurt, we're like, oh, what happened? But you have to understand that God has said, I knew that was going to happen. I have a plan. I'm not out here to hurt you, but I know my people have free will, and I knew you would go through this, and there's a plan. Trust me, there's a lesson in this. There is beauty in the brokenness. And what I love about us going through the series of relationships, how can we be broken without people? Think about it. Now, let's be clear, right? Some brokenness, and that I've experienced myself, depression, anxiety, and so on, bad habits, that can come from within, the thoughts. But most of our brokenness comes from someone that we've experienced or that we're constantly experiencing. And brokenness doesn't have to be this big broken. Sometimes we think of broken. I'm not broken, on the floor, can't move. Not all the time. See, ladies, the way God created us, we are highly functional. We can have some cracks and some fractures and still be moving like we've never been cracked before. But God is saying it's in the cracks and it's in the fractures that I want you to begin to operate so I can heal those so we can go on to the next thing. But at every new level, there's a new devil. There's going to be a new opportunity. I want to, we use the word broken, but just a new opportunity for a challenge, a difficulty that's going to shift you, that's going to change the way, just like Nana was saying in her piece for Super Sister Saturday, that cup is so much more beautiful when you break it and put it back together. That's a different cup. It even holds the liquid differently. That's a different masterpiece that God has said, I'm not finished. I'm not finished. You're not just going to be this whole cup. So I love it. So if we lived on earth by ourselves, how would we even experience that brokenness? I mean, I think honestly, some of us, if we just was like, born and here we are by ourselves, maybe for the first few days, we'd be like, oh, this is just, ain't no traffic. Look at this supermarket. I have like a thing about supermarkets. The Lord tests me in supermarkets. I personally feel that when I'm in a supermarket, these people are following me. When I want to get the sugar, there she is. The same lady. And then I'll say, finally, I'll be like, excuse me. And then they look at me like, I have the nerve. So I tell Daniel, I say, I can't go to the supermarket. I lose it, and it's all in my head, but it's the interaction with people. It's me, sometimes overthinking. But ultimately, if we were here by ourselves, there'll be a lot less brokenness, but we weren't created for that. So eventually, we will not be able to survive on our own without relationships. So, we're at 7:34 because I do want to open the floor. So, remember, ladies, we don't grow in isolation. So we were never intended to be by ourselves. And if you're on this call tonight and you have isolated yourself, that is for you. That is for you, because I know what it's like to isolate. For a while, like I said, it feels good. Now, does that mean that God doesn't have you call time for yourself? Absolutely. But there's a difference between taking time for yourself and isolation, complete indefinite isolation. There's a difference, because I can take time for myself and still have relationships that I'm building and growing and working through. Or I can cut off each one that's hard, right? And just kind of deal with the ones that are kind of like you have to deal. Sometimes you got to deal with family. Some people are able to just, I'm not gonna lie, I could. All right. See, I got to be careful. I could cut off some family members. Let's be honest. Some people can, some people can't. It depends on your proximity, right? But you have to learn that unless it's like another situation, extreme abuse, trauma, but if it's just the matter of the differences and the difficulties, we have to be careful to stop being so quick to isolate, because it could be in that relationship that God is trying to take you somewhere higher for a completely different purpose. But we keep running away. And you know what's funny? I like to say, if you don't receive that season, you're going to repeat that season. You ever find yourself coming right back to that same person, whatever it may be? You keep coming back to that friendship or back to that coworker or back to that family member. And you're like, okay. And like I said, it's okay to take some steps back, but at the same time, you don't want to completely isolate if God is saying, daughter, I need you to dive in. I need you to dive into this, because something in your heart, even when you isolate from them, something in your heart is telling you it ain't over. It's not over. So we don't grow in isolations, and we can't claim renewal while holding on to so much unresolved, with people of our past, things that we just didn't let go. And sometimes, and we talked about this, it doesn't always necessarily warrant a conversation directly with that person. It just depends on where God is guiding you. Now, as I'm speaking, just like any message, always understand, you pick out what's for you, because all of our stories are different, but we are all women. and we can all relate on one story or another. We can take that and learn to at least apply the solution or whatever that is that God is telling you to whatever it is that you're dealing with. So we're here, we're taking our time, we're learning to come back to the table. And I keep saying come back to the table because that is pretty much how this book starts. Because I was like, what does it mean? I thought about what, the book is called Come Sit With Me. And it, like I said, it makes me think of that movie Mean Girls when they're like, you can't sit here. But that's what the book is saying. The book is saying, open those seats up at your table. There are some people that you either pushed off that table. There's some people that some tables you walked away too prematurely. There's some tables in your life that you need to fill with some godly Christian woman. And because of some of the hurts that you may have had with some godly Christian woman, you're just like, forget it. Forget it. And that's when let me tell you, that isolation turns into resentment, turns into bitterness, turns into anger. So that just doesn't stay at a place of isolation. Every seed eventually grows into something. So right now we're trying to check our seeds. What do we have? What have we planted? And is it God's will, the seeds that we planted, or does he desire to see us grow, to see us challenge? And I love how they said it here. So we're going to go straight into the book. And in about 10 minutes, I'm going to open the floor. Okay. So I love how she starts. She said, have you ever seen, I need some light now. You know what it is? Daylight saving. That's not even a lot of light. Took my hour. Well, I guess it's lighter out, but still I'm mad about my hour. Y'all know it'll be 6:38 right now. I'm tired. Okay, here we go. So here we go. Have you ever heard yourself saying something like this? I can't believe she did that. I can't believe he thought he could do that. This pain is too much. You know what? I can't go back. The divide is too wide. We'll never see eye to eye. We're just not the same. They don't understand me and I can't. Anyway, that was me. I just put that in there. I'm tired of arguing, so I'm done. We have nothing in common. If she only walked in my shoes, then she would understand. If he could see it from my perspective, then maybe he would have done differently. They just don't seem like they're willing to try, so I'm over it. I'm kind of adding my cerise to this. This is too hard. Honestly, I don't know what to say or where to start, so I just keep putting it off. I'm not equipped to build that kind of friendship. You know what? It's impossible to repair that relationship. Thank God that's over with. I'm too hurt to move forward. And I love that. And she said, she said, but it is a woman. If you find yourself saying any one of those things, this is where God wants to come in. Yes, this is the first chapter. Actually, this is the introduction. We're not even in the first chapter. This is the introduction that we're in. Intro. Okay. So I love how she breaks this down. And one of the main things, and we talked about this one time, that she talks about, let me see, I know where is it? Here it is. We are going to focus on loving through disagreements, living with discomfort, and delighting in our differences. That is how we're going to take our command to love one another to the next level. That is how we're going to see ourselves grow and in a whole new way. And that's what it is right there. Can we really love through disagreements? Can we just, there's a saying out there, let's agree to disagree. Now, here's how I feel about that saying. Yes, and, right? When you constantly are saying, we agree to disagree, it's almost like you're saying, let's not go there anymore. Let's not. Sometimes let's sit down at the table. Let's talk about this. And it's not about getting someone to see your opinion, but it's about getting the understanding of where that person is coming from. Sometimes we just scratch the surface with people and we get to that part. You ever start a new friendship or start a new relationship? Anything new, you start to scratch the surface. It gets deeper It gets deeper. You're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, that's so cute about you. Oh, I like that girl. Oh, I like that he does that. Oh, okay. You thought, you do that. Oh, you like that. And it just goes on down. Once you get to that one thing and you're just like, oh, that's how you feel. Oh, that's what you do. And we don't take into consideration history, background, mindset, perspective, and some of them, yes, are red flags to say, get up, run. Yes. Okay. But some of them, God is saying, sit at the table. I want to show you something. There's either something for you or something for them. If we can really learn to love through disagreements, live with discomfort. That's what it is. That's that hard part. That's that beautifully broken part where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. And normally I would be out, but I'm sitting at the table. I'm going to see this through until God tells me I can get up. That's where we want to get. And sometimes it might be a thorn in your side. What did he say? Okay, God, remove this from me. I'm done. God is like, my grace is sufficient. What? You wait a minute. Are you sure you mean that? We can circle back in 7. No, not tonight. Because I'm just like, my grace is sufficient. Do you see what's going on here? Do you see what they did? Don't you see how unfair that is? My grace is sufficient. Whatever that is. And delighting in our differences. Can we learn to love people that just don't completely think like us? They don't do stuff like us. We are so quick to try to collaborate with people that are just like us. Many times that's where no growth. What did Pastor say? If you're the smartest person in your group, get a new group. If your group is all doing the same thing, the same way, the same time, you may need something challenging. And sometimes when we feel that challenge, it gets uncomfortable. You might get someone that's calling you higher, but maybe you don't see it like that. You're just like, I don't feel like doing all that. They just do too much. But God is saying, yeah, no, connect. I'm calling you higher. So that's what I loved about just the root of this intro about learning how to sit in those places with people. And ladies, we will find ourselves just growing in a different place. Some of us have been praying for relationships, whether it's a man, whether it's the husband, maybe you're looking for a godly sister or just a friend. Let me tell you, God has some people in your life that don't even believe in God, but he sent them. And you can learn a thing or two from them. Go figure, huh? See, it's not just about, sometimes as women, we even protect ourselves from people of this world, people of the world that don't believe, but we have to remember that they're still created in God's image, and we are the lights of the world. We only hang out with the other lights, and we keep the darkness over there. How can our light be used truly? Again, all that is taking that bright light and keeping it in a closet. And some of us, we've just kind of been put down by other people's words talking about our light. And we need to be able to rise above that. Oh, no, girl, don't do that. Oh, I don't know. That may not be for you. Look, if God said that's where you're headed, that's what you're headed. If God said that's your calling and that's how you do it, that's what you do. If God said, and it's not always about this big grand gesture. If God is saying this is what he wants to see you do just for a couple of minutes a day or once a week, and that's something that he wants you to begin to pursue, you follow what God says, right? Use your light and be open to where he's taking you. I love how she said, being human is hard, but being in relationships with other humans is harder. Come on, ladies. Like, it's already difficult sometimes for some of us to wake up and feel we have to pray for the presence of the Lord. For real. Sometimes, and if y'all want to be real or not, I know me, sometimes I just wake up and it's heavy. I'm already over the day and haven't even got out my bed. I start thinking, women, what do I got to do today? We're already at 4 p.m. and it's still 6 a.m. We're already like, I got to get that. Oh yeah, I got to buy that. Okay, I got to send that email. I got to just thinking. And sometimes it could be overwhelming, or it could just be a thing. You just not feeling it. We got so much stuff going on as women. We have to connect because it's so much. Our bodies are changing, our hormones, we're growing. We need to have older women in our lives. We need to have younger women in our lives. We need to have women like us in our lives. We have to. Let me tell you, I've always loved speaking to the older women in my life. Always. Just learning and learning, just looking at them like, wow, you're so calm and patient, and we have to be able to pour back into younger women. And I love speaking to younger women. I've always had a heart for the youth, right? But ultimately, these are relationships that connect us, whether in Christ or not, that are going to challenge us, that are going to give us an opportunity to use our light, right? So, it's already hard, ladies, but God wants to call you into something different, that it will be harder, but it is so much more beneficial in the end. And I think that's what Jesus is getting to. He's just like, listen, it is going to be hard to sit back down at the table with some people, but in the end, you are going to say, I am so glad. When it's all said and done, because life is too short, you're going to say, I am so thankful that God tugged on my heart to resolve some things and to sit back down on the table and to reconnect and to turn my light back on and to go out there, even though I was scared, because I didn't want to let that guard down again. I didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to be taken advantage of, but I was in God's hands this time. So I knew that no matter what happened, even if it happened again, that this time it would be different because my eyes are on him and not them. And that's the key to dealing with people. The moment things get crazy, the more you look into what they're doing and you take your eyes off of what God is doing in that relationship, oh, it's a wrap. I'm up. I will get up from the table, sell it at the garage sale, put the tables on the lawn, right? Forget it with some people. Forget it. I'm like, oh no, no, But if I would have said, there's so many mistakes I made. I'm going to say this. There are so many mistakes I made in my past friendships, in past relationships, where I look back and I say, wow, I could have just, if I looked at it different, I could have just been more, I could have put love first. But some of us, like me, I like the last word. But, even though it feels good at the end, I'm like, all right, and period. Now what? Years later, I'm sitting here like, you know what? That last word wasn't worth it. Me feeling like, well, you will not, and I will not subject myself to. And God had to say, relax, baby girl. Relax. Just trust me. Just trust me. There was something there for you. And you closing the door in this, there's growth. And there are some relationships that I actually, even though it was difficult, I went back to the table, and today I can say I'm so blessed, even within my family. Sat back on the table and just gave it time. Sometimes it takes time. And it's so funny. She says, sometimes it's not about taking the next step. Okay, now we have to know, how are we going to move forward? Sometimes it's about sitting and listening, being present, being a person again, right? In that person's life. So I'm going to end here on this page, because let me tell y'all something. We always go through this, right? I don't know when we're going to get through this book, but here's what I will say. We're going to take our time with relationships, because it's so much. And I don't want to overwhelm. I knew that we had to do a message today, but I don't want to overwhelm. Like we're only on page 1 of the intro. Okay. But sometimes I will move forward. It was a lot to be said today, but I do want to end with this. And I love that she said this. Both the beautiful and the broken parts of our stories can make connecting with others challenging. That's what it is. It's the beautiful parts of us, and it's the broken parts of us. Then when you take those two things on each side and you bring them together, oh, there's bound to be challenge. It's just, how can we deal with those challenges differently? How can we move forward? I mean, I love reading about Jesus, but I'm constantly just going back and forth with him and how he lived his life with people. He lived with life with someone that he knew was going to betray him. Sometimes we don't necessarily get that. We don't necessarily know if there's someone that's going to turn their back on us and keep inviting them over to my house. I told you I would be a rat. Don't let, I would have been like, Judas is going to do what now? Oh, nah, let me send this text message out and delete Judas from my phone, right? But what was that doing? getting in the middle of like anything that happened, Peter wanting to fight the soldiers and Judas betraying him, everything was a part of God's plan for his life. And everything that you experience with another person is a part of the plan for your life. I'm not saying that God brings harm. I'm not saying that God brings trauma, because some of us are still maybe a little angry with God for some things that have taken place with you and another person. It's not that he brings those things. It's that God can use anything, good or bad. It all comes together for your good. That's what he's saying. We live in a broken world. So there's some evil in this world. There are some things that are going to happen. God doesn't treat anyone like a robot. He is not controlling anyone. Everyone has free will. But what he can do is what he does do, he can if he wanted to, but he chooses not to. So what he does is he uses everything that happens in your life for your good if you let him. It comes back around, but it's hard because you got to be able to sit down and say, okay, God, I'm done being angry with you. Show me, where is the beauty in this? Where is it? What do I need to do? And many times he will use your story to help someone else, because there is nothing new under the sun. And he's preparing you to bless someone else, to glorify him, and to ultimately be blessed yourself. You seek him first, he will add on those desires. And not just the material things, but he will give you the peace you've been looking for when you wake up in the middle of the night and your mind starts going. He will give you the rest you've been asking for. He will give you the healing you've been needing in your body if you would just stop and sit with him. Because that brokenness, that unforgiveness, that isolation, that begins to reign in our physical bodies in different ways. So we want to learn this year to be free. To be free and allow God to do what he does, even with the difficult people in our lives, even with the nervousness of being taken advantage of or being manipulated again. We got to keep our eyes on him. That is the only way we can live out here with the people. The people are hard. And when you're living and you're walking in the Christian streets, forget it. Forget it. Not only are you're just trying to be a Christian. That literally, that was going through my head today. I'm trying to be a Christian. I'm trying to be a decent woman. I'm trying not to, show, myself, and it's a lot, but I had to keep my eyes on God. Okay. Now I did get in the car and call Daniel and go off as if he was a teacher. I said, now where's the jacket? Huh? Where's the jacket? That wasn't her jacket. I just had to air out. You got to have people in your life that you're going to air out a little bit. But ultimately, ladies, we are going to take this journey and we're going to take the journey together, because it ain't easy. And my prayer, and I always say this through WCW, look around, get into the church chat. This chat is so cool. There's so many conversations happening. There are women looking for resources, and the resources are here. We always talk about therapy. We always talk about when it comes to unforgiveness and trying to sit at the table again, that many times it may take another person to help you do that. Maybe you need someone to sit at the table with you with that person, and that's okay. But if God is asking you, and that's what I ask that your prayer be tonight, and as we move forward, ask God, what are you showing me about the relationships in my life? What are you showing me about any unforgiveness I'm still holding on to you? Where have I not resolved? Help me to move my ego and my pride and that protection and that guard to the side, and help me to let you in first. Because I trust you that if you send me out there on the waters, that you will be there, that I won't sink, even when it gets difficult. So ultimately, ladies, that's where we're at. I know we are at the end right now. This was just the introduction. Let me know. We have room for at least one or two people if you want to share anything, regarding where we're headed, where we're going with this idea of relationships. Here's how we do it. Normally, I definitely don't open the floor at 7:55, but I know it was a message today. But what we do is, like, the next session, we'll probably have an open forum to just talk. We just give the hour, because once we get to talking, it's a wrap. Helena, come on down, Helena. Can you hear me? Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I really wanted to get on. So because I was blown away by our WCW. I don't know what I had in my mind that was supposed to be, but it definitely it wasn't that. And so I'm glad we're going to have open forum, because through this process, what I appreciate being able to do is in real time. You nailed it. You said the discomfort. It's like I'm so aware of how uncomfortable I am when intimacy, like when I trust and I put my foot out there, like I'm bold when it's just, I'm just sticking and moving. But when a real feeling is transferred and then there's intimacy, it sitting with that discomfort is like I want to retreat. And
That's real.
How can you get to the next step if you stick and move all the time? So just making myself come in here and be familiar and consistent is a big part of it, whether I share or not share. But it's just sitting with the discomfort of really letting people in and getting to know me and believing they're going to stick. And how does this play out, trying to be a fortune teller, looking up the road. So discomfort is good to work through. It's good to have a space to work through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you said that. This is definitely the space, the safe space. Oh, let me hold on. Let me